All right, everybody. So you've talked about managing for stakeholders in business and society multiple times. But if I were to ask you, how do you go about doing that? Many of you might be like, I'm not quite sure how I would actually go about managing for stakeholders. And that's where OrgCom comes in. Take a look at this. When we talk about managing your stakeholders, we're talking about these three things. What are your values? How do you engage? And how are you perceived? This is a framework for how you'd go about managing for stakeholders. You've talked about this a lot already, and you will continue to do so in the social impact core. This is something that you deal with no matter what. You have to deal with it. People perceive you every day. This is what we're going to talk about in OrgCom. It's essentially how you engage. But just know, as we talk about this, we're going to talk about all of these things together. And of course, it's OrgCom and the social context, because you never just communicate with one other person in a bubble. Everything you do has an impact on the things around you, as well as the things around you have an impact on everything you do. They happen at the same time, and they are constantly moving and evolving. So that's where the social context comes in as well. So let me make this more real for you with an example. I just got off the phone yesterday with a Stern junior who interned over the summer at an investment bank, begins with a B. Anyway, she wants an offer in sales and trading. That wasn't the desk that she was on, but that's where she wants her return offer to be. And she's been networking like crazy in order to get there, right? And so I think about this framework in her context, and hopefully this gives you a little bit more to understand, right? She knows what she stands for, right? She has a very clear set of her skills, what she brings to the table, what she wants out of her career, right? So she knows what her values are, and she's continuing to think about those. She also knows that she is not perceived particularly well in the sales and trading space. She's not seen as very salesy. In fact, she's even gotten that feedback from certain folks that they're not sure she's a good fit for the desk. And so her goal, as she's going through this process, is actually to engage with the right stakeholders to change their perception and make sure that what she stands for is actually more aligned with how she's actually perceived. And of course, she has to do all of that within the larger context. So she's gotten introductions, and managing directors have reached out on her behalf to like get her some of these conversations with different desks. She doesn't want to ruin that relationship. She also has colleagues that she's worked with for the past year, over the past summer, and they have opinions about her as well. They will help some of these perceptions either move forward or hold her back, right? She has to make sure that she's engaging and thinking through the way she speaks and interacts with all of these different people, recognizing that, yes, there is this larger social context. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense in terms of what managing for stakeholders is all about. At the end of the day, the number one priority I have in this class is for you at the individual level to think about yourself. Where are you in this process? Are you thinking about your values? How are you engaging in things that are important for you, and how are you perceived? If you think through these things more, you're going to get what you want, and that's actually what I care about. But this class also looks at two other levels besides just you. You will also look closely at the team dynamics. You'll be working with teams all semester long, and your job will be to think through how you can be as effective as possible. You will continue to use this same framework for managing stakeholders at the group level. You will have group rules, group norms. You will form a group culture. You have to figure out how you're going to engage with one another. This includes active listening. It includes a strong delivery. It also includes a communication strategy. And yes, we're going to talk about all of those things in detail. And we're going to have feedback sessions so that you can get a little bit more understanding of how you and your group are actually perceived within the class and within the context that we're working. Speaking of context, you're one group of many. This class is a group of groups. We are ourselves an organization. What we do as a group has an impact and affects other groups and vice versa. And then, other things happen as well, right? So we have things that are way outside of the class. You have your other classes, you've got stresses, you've got to deal with financial aid, you've got to deal with getting a job, and all these other things are all part of that social context, which will 100% affect how this process works overall. And lastly, we will also look at the organizational level. This is actually called organizational communication and its social context for a reason. We will look at how organizations do the exact same thing. All organizations have some sort of mission that they live and breathe by, some better than others. But again, you'll look closely at the organization's values. What do they stand for? What is their What are their behaviors, their norms, their culture? How are they actually perceived by important stakeholders, stakeholders that have a real effect on the business and are truly affected by the business? And how does the company actually engage with them? Again, same stuff. We're going to look closely at communication strategy. Yes, companies have to actively listen. There are delivery modes that are better for particular audiences. We will measure how all of these different organizations are perceived. And yes, you will consider how all of this occurs in the social context. COVID-19 being just one of many contexts that companies have to deal with now, but that's a great starting point, right? What is this company actually dealing with in these times, and how are they getting through it? How do those things actually affect the company, and how does the company actually affect those other things? So again, we're going to look at your values, how you engage, how you're perceived at both the individual and the group, and also the organizational levels. All three use the same exact framework, and yet you're going to use them in different ways in order to think through how you can get what you want. That's the whole bottom line here. So just a little hint, you may want to jot some of these things down because we're going to be working on this all semester long. Can't wait to get started, and we'll talk more in class.